We want to encourage you stay connected to us, and you can find out more about us at Twitter at BronxNet TV and then Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Kicking off the show with some news, a Kingsbridge firehouse is hanging a purple bunting this morning, remembering its battalion chief killed battling an early morning fire. Battalion Chief Michael Fahey was directing his firefighters during the blaze on East 234th Street when debris from an explosion struck and killed the 17-year veteran of the FDNY. Investigators are still trying to determine whether or not the fire and explosion came from a gas leak in the building or whether the house was a marijuana growing house. Police later arrested Jose Salcedo, who was seen leaving the building in connection with the fire. Meanwhile, FDNY Commissioner Daniel Negro remembered Fahey, saying he was a father of three, a rising star in the fire department, stating it's, quote, a sad day. And thankfully, this doesn't happen every day, but when it does, it doesn't make it any easier. We lost a hero today. Negro also said he shared personally he knew Fahey's father, who was a former fire chief. This is the first line of duty death from the department since 2014. Well, in other news across the borough, city council leaders are supporting Complete the Concourse, a long-standing community-led campaign for a street redesign aimed at bringing improvements for bus riders, pedestrians, and cyclists. The Grand Concourse has been known to be one of the most dangerous streets in our borough, as 13 people have been killed and 1,069 injured along the concourse. City Council member Vanessa Gibson stated, the Grand Concourse is among the most highly trafficked thoroughfares in the city, making it particularly deserving of investments that preserve safety and promote economic development. I thank Transportation Alternatives for pushing this project and looking forward to better and safer streets for all. In other Bronx news, a former Bronx High School science teacher pled guilty in federal court on Friday to one count of child pornography. According to the United States Attorney's Office, John Cruz had multiple conversations on mobile apps and social media with at least 5 minors from July 2014 through December of 2015. The 33-year-old former Bronx teacher will face up to 20 years in jail. Sentencing will take place in January 2016. BronxNet did reach out to the school for a statement, but they did not get back in touch with us in time for this broadcast. And if you didn't know, yesterday was National Voters Registration Day, and a number of events held across the country, making sure all Americans were registered to vote. Now, if you still have not yet registered to vote, today is the last day to do so. Here in the Bronx, Lehman College is hosting an event to make sure students are registered. The college's president, Jose Luis Cruz, will join the school's senior administrative team at the Lehman bookstore registering students. So if you haven't, go out and register. And in other news across our borough, Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. stood on the steps of City Hall with other city leaders fighting for the right to counsel and housing court for all tenants. Our BronxNet reporter, Nancy Asiyama, was there. She brings us the story.
But moving forward, let's pass Intro 214. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were the final words of Bronx President Ruben Diaz Jr. as he joined other city leaders on the steps of City Hall before testifying before the City Council Committee for all New York City tenants to have the right to counsel in housing court.
We just want to equate, have some equity in the on the field where so many of the people who are being evicted and find themselves during homelessness are people who don't have representation. A third of those come from the Bronx.
The bill was introduced in 2014 by council members Mark Levine and Vanessa Gibson to help tenants like Chris Chalfant, who was on the verge of eviction despite having a disability.
The superintendent of our building, who represents her landlord, made false claims against me, and my landlord stated that he had to take the super on his word.
Chalfant did her own research for a month to find out what her rights were as a tenant so the landlord can drop the claims against her. She says the thought of her becoming homeless terrified her.
It was incredibly stressful. I almost had a breakdown. I couldn't sleep at night. I mean, the thought of a person being evicted, and especially if it's wrong, it's terrifying.
A majority of tenants currently appear in housing court without any legal representation, while a majority of landlords do, giving them a higher hand in the outcome. This is why all these New Yorkers are fired up to get this bill passed.
And it would take a load off of their living stress. It would keep the children in their homes and won't break up families.
If passed, the bill will make the Big Apple the first city nationwide to provide low-income tenants with free legal representation. Nancy Asiama, BronxNet.
And thank you, Nancy. When we come back, we'll get into an in-depth conversation with our political commentators about Monday night's presidential debate. You certainly don't want to miss that. Stay with us. We're coming right back right after this.